You know, you're not personally slitting the animals' throats open. And just to take a poll, how many people here would like to spend an afternoon slitting animals' throats open? No takers, right? In Texas, no less. Nobody wants to do that. Most of us don't want to see it. Most of us don't even want to think about it. So where is the basic integrity in paying other people to do things to animals that not only could we not do them, we don't even want to think about them? The great philosopher Paul McCartney put it very well when he said, it's staggering when you think about it. Vegetarianism takes care of so many things in one shot. Ecology, famine, cruelty. If you care about the global poor, the environment, or animals, eating meat is not ethical. Thank you.
Now we'll have our 10-minute introduction for the second round.
Roll on 2 seconds, Ben.
Oh.
First of all, starting off, we'd like to say that 90% of what he just got up here and said, we agree with 100%. Industrialized agriculture is terrible. It not only results in concentrated animal feeding operations that destroy billions of animals a year, cause them immense suffering, but it also destroys the land. Industrialized crop production, genetically modified organisms are not just chickens and livestock, they're also seeds. And the problem that he isolates here, famine, poverty, all of these things, environmental destruction, the problem is not the consumption of meat. The problem is our industrialized agriculture practices. There are ways that we can have an ethical relationship to the food that we eat. There's nothing inherently and intrinsically wrong about eating meat. He got up here and talked about how the production of meat destroys the environment, how the production of the meat and market irregularities result in poverty, famine, starvation. And he talks about how factory farms destroy animals and produce them in a way that is probably one of the biggest abominations that has happened on this planet. But the solution to this problem, simply becoming vegetarian, is not going to solve that problem. We have to go beyond that. We have to recognize that we have done something. We have turned the food in the world that we live in, we just turned it into a commodity that is for ourselves. And until we fundamentally alter the way that we look at our food, look at the things that allow us to survive, we're going to keep doing things that are just as bad as factory farms. We might not have a factory farm, but we'll destroy entire areas of land. But the good thing is there are ways that we can have meat, eat meat, but not do all of the things that they talked about. There are ways that we can have sustainable farming operations that not only help animals, but also help make the land a better place. And so I'm going to show you all a clip of one that is running, I believe, in Virginia right now.
Everything is grass-based. You know, they don't eat corn or dead cows or chicken manure like, you know, they feed right here in the valley, or dead chickens. They actually eat grass, forage, you know, clover, grass, herbs. So they're herbivores. If they're eating corn, you're going to have to harvest that corn. transport that corn, and then you're going to have to haul all that manure somewhere out from it comes out the back end. Here, it's there is the whole thing. I mean, the cow she's fertilizing, she's mowing. We don't have to spread any manure. We don't have to harvest it. She's harvesting it. I mean, it's all real time, real solar dollars. The industrial food system gradually became so noisy, smelly, not a person-friendly place that the people who operate those plants don't want anybody to go there, because then people would see the ugly truth. When that occurred, then we lost all the integrity and all the accountability in the food system. If we put glass walls on all of the mega processing facilities, we would have a different food system in this country.
This is an example of a more humane method of killing animals. It's immediate, it's painless. They don't know that they're dead.
We have allowed ourselves to become so disconnected and ignorant about something that is as intimate as the food that we eat.
All right, I'm going to stop the video right there. I'm going to let Drew come up here in just a second. But the last thing before we move on is that I know we showed this video of the chicken being killed. And the reason why we do that is there's nothing necessarily wrong about things dying. For us to exist, we have to kill. Species have to go extinct so that we can live. We will also die at some point. And the point of it is we don't think that it's the killing of an animal that is something that is inherently wrong. It's the way that that animal is transformed into a commodity where we reduce its value and its dignity to nothing simply because it is a commodity. And so our argument is that meat eating can be ethical, but we absolutely need to completely reorient the way that we go about connecting with our food and eating with our food. And it's just one other point to make before Drew gets up here is that animals also kill each other in the wild. It's not like meat eating is wrong unto itself. And so to simply say that the act of killing another animal for survival or for food is bad is simply not the case. Now, we agree that we shouldn't just blanketly go out and kill other beings, but we believe that we can also live in a fashion that seeks to minimize danger, harm, suffering to all entities in the world while still eating things like meat, because meat eating unto itself is not wrong.
Okay, while Bruce was up here, he brought up like 3 or 4 main issues. The first issue he brought up is animal cruelty. That's the reason, one of the reasons that eating meat is not ethical. However, as the video is shown above, the issue is not eating meat. It's not an intrinsically unethical issue about eating meat, but rather the way in which mechanized production practices have caused animals to be treated as mere objects who we can destroy and mutilate at will. And so a new form of sustainable farming, a sort of farming that moves away from these industrialized practices, is crucial to a world without animal cruelty. Also, there's a feasibility argument here to be made as well, since we can use our purchasing power when we buy meat to alter the way the industry is shaped. We can buy things that are sustainable, that are grass-fed, that are free-range. And when we buy these sorts of things, it literally changes the industry because it changes supply and demand in such a way that factory farms become less economically viable and things like sustainable farms become drastically more viable. And that's a way of tangibly changing the meat industry. Whereas if we choose to abstain from eating meat, then ultimately that just allows those who don't care about their relationships to the food they eat to dominate the market and ultimately only produce demand for things like factory farm meat, which is a reason why eating meat but choosing a certain kind of meat that is ultimately humane is the best way to actually influence animal cruelty and have the ethical advantage to our actions that Bruce speaks of. Another one of the things he discusses is global food shortages. First off, I'd like to point out that this global food shortages, the reason that he identifies for why global food shortages occur is because cattle are fed with things like grain and overly processed food, as opposed to